I don't know what happened. I don't remember the next few minutes, but I got in the car and I drove.
Hi friends, it's Harry from Sister Wives Unmasked. Welcome back to the channel. I just watched that clip you saw at the start of this video, the one where Janelle breaks down in tears. We know exactly what she's talking about. This emotional moment will air in the upcoming episode this Sunday, May 4th. There aren't many times in this job when I want to cover tragic stories. In fact, I really dislike it. It's one of the hardest parts of what I do because so much of this work involves digging into difficult, painful topics. But this story has hit differently. It touched me personally. It's touched many of you, and it's weighed heavily on those who have followed the Brown family for years. When this tragedy happened, so many of us had immediate questions. Mainly, how would TLC handle it? Their track record hasn't exactly inspired confidence. TLC has a history of prioritizing drama and ratings over ethical storytelling. Too often, they sanitize situations that don't need sanitizing, or worse, exploit people who are already hurting. We've seen it before. Jim Bob Duggar using a TV show to control his family. Kody Brown doing the same. Kate Gosselin. Toby Willis. The list just keeps growing. And of course, countless people on 90 Day Fiancé who've been arrested, all with little to no accountability from the network. Now, this Sunday, they're going to show the aftermath of Garrison Brown's passing. Other reality shows have covered the deaths of cast members, but rarely like this. On My Big Fat Fabulous Life, Whitney's mother passed away, and it became part of the show's narrative. Grandma Duggar's funeral was also shown, which I remember thinking was pretty surreal. But those were older people, most of whom had been ill before they died. It's rare to see a story about someone so young, just stepping into adulthood, who dies in such a tragic way. Then there are the police reports, which revealed Garrison's final text message, sent not just to co-workers and production staff, but also to his father, Christine, his siblings, and his mom. He wrote, "I want to hate you for the good times, but I can't. I miss those days." His mom had been checking in on him, and he admitted he wasn't doing well. We know this all happened in March. And if we look back at the season leading up to it, Kody publicly bullied Garrison and his other sons. He called his kids jerks and said he didn't want to speak to them anymore. In the tell-all, Kody even said he wanted to punch family members in the mouth for criticizing Robyn. He portrayed it as if he needed to defend his wife from his own children, painting his kids as threats to Robyn and her kids, which only alienated them further. Now, in this week's episode, seeing Kody act like he was the one alienated by his wives, it's hard to stomach. Honestly, it makes me feel sick. Watching him still cast himself as the victim, knowing what came of all this, it's just heartbreaking. Losses like this are complex. So many different factors contribute to them. For someone struggling with suicidal ideation or mental illness, there's often this distorted belief that leaving is better for everyone. That there's such a burden that their absence would somehow make life easier for those they love. When someone feels like they've caused endless problems for the people around them, it can be overwhelming. They can't just turn off those thoughts. That kind of ideation doesn't go away on its own. It takes help, real help, to manage it. On top of that, Garrison was also struggling with substance abuse. The coroner's report showed he had an extremely high level of alcohol in his system. It was ruled both alcohol poisoning and a self-inflicted cause. The combination of those two factors, along with the presence of a firearm, led to an incredibly tragic outcome. And it's hard not to wonder, if he had been sober, could things have turned out differently? There have always been undercurrents in this family, issues quietly acknowledged but never fully confronted. Long-standing arguments, tension, and strain. But the seriousness of what these kids were going through has often been glossed over. That's what has made watching this season feel so strange to me. Last season, it was blatantly obvious that the kids were hurting. They were angry, frustrated, desperate to be heard. And now, in the season after Garrison's death, it feels like TLC is trying to rewrite the narrative. It's like they're attempting to walk back everything we saw before, trying to soften or explain away the awful things Kody said. Now he's claiming he didn't mean them, or he said them just in the heat of the moment on camera. It seems like he's trying to absolve himself of responsibility ahead of what's about to be shown on the show. He's been saying things like, "I was alienated from my children after the divorces. I think my ex-wives didn't protect the privacy of our breakup. They just told the kids, 'Your dad's like this, your dad's like that.'" And now, he claims he's just trying to rebuild relationships where his kids don't only hear about him through their mom's lens. But if you've been watching closely, you'll remember. All of this is happening right after season 18, when Kody was openly berating his kids, calling Garrison a jerk, and saying he never wanted to speak to him again. My fear is that with the new episodes, all of that context is going to be lost. People will forget those moments ever aired. This week's episode is going to cover it. And with 3 more episodes left before the tell-all, it's likely Garrison's death will be a central focus in all of them. But here's the thing. How do you cover something like this with honesty when you're making a reality show with profits in mind? How do you address the fact that so much of this family's conflict stems from the show itself? From the things Kody says publicly about his kids, from the harmful rhetoric he's spewed in tabloids, on tell-alls, and to producers, all without a shred of guilt or accountability. How do you truly tell the story of the trauma these kids have endured? Not just from living their lives on reality TV, stripped of privacy, but from having their most painful moments turned into battlegrounds between their parents, and now having their brother's death packaged into a storyline for ratings? That's why I wanted to give some perspective before this week's episode airs. Reality TV has a long history of exploiting stories involving self-harm. There are so many layers to what leads someone to that point. Fame and public pressure, negative portrayals on screen, social media backlash. All of that can take a heavy toll on mental health, leading to breakdowns, anxiety, depression, and in tragic cases, suicide. We know Garrison was already facing intense backlash from his dad, and that alone is enough to weigh heavily on someone's mental well-being. Reality TV often targets vulnerable people, and far too often, networks don't provide real support to the families involved. Imagine this. The camera crews show up day after day, fully aware that Kody is saying terrible things. But instead of offering help, instead of suggesting therapy or resources, they just keep filming. They don't ask how it's affecting the people on the other side of the lens. Their only concern is making good TV, not protecting the emotional health of the people they're filming. When a show covers suicide, it has to be done with extreme care because how it's portrayed can actually contribute to something called suicide contagion. That's when vulnerable people, who might already be struggling, are influenced by what they see and could be pushed closer to making the same tragic decision. If a show focuses on stirring up drama and conflict, if it shames, humiliates, or portrays its cast in a negative light, it can deeply impact the mental health and well-being of those involved. The pressure the cast is under absolutely plays a role. And here's the big problem. There are no official guidelines in reality TV. No real regulations to protect people the way there are in scripted television or film. It's not like asking an actor to step into a role. You're pushing real people to stir up drama, to create storylines, and to be as emotionally raw as possible, just to make something that sells. And let's be honest, most of our everyday lives aren't nearly that dramatic. If you filmed my life, it would be dull. In an hour, I'll go pick up my son from school. Tomorrow morning, I'll drop him off again. That's just life. Nothing wild, no explosive drama. But for reality TV, they have to manufacture drama. They have to keep people talking about conflict, about pain, about the worst moments of their lives. They're constantly asked to rehash those events, never giving anyone a real chance to heal or move on. And now, with Garrison's death becoming part of the storyline, it feels like that's exactly what's going to happen here. How does the show just continue on as if nothing happened? How does Kody keep building this arc of being the amazing father that TLC has been painting him as? They've spent 22 episodes this season creating a narrative where Kody is suddenly involved, attentive, and loving, showing a softer, more engaged side of him. We've seen him gushing over his kids with Robin, while conveniently ignoring the children he's distanced himself from. In one of the recent episodes, Kody talks about seeing Aspen, Michael T, and the twins, and mentions spending time with 2 boys from another mother. That scene must have been filmed when he was in town and went to a concert with them. But those two boys weren't Garrison and Gabriel. I believe it was Hunter and Logan. It feels like Kody's trying hard to prove to the audience that he's a great dad. But the real question is, will the show reveal that Kody didn't show up at the scene of Garrison's death? Will they show how Janelle told police that Garrison had been estranged from his father and that their relationship was complicated? Will they acknowledge that Garrison had been battling mental illness and substance abuse? Will they share what his friends have said about how he struggled with shame, self-doubt, and the emotional toll of the show itself? Including that would actually give viewers an eye-opening and honest perspective. But it would likely shift the experience of the show. It would take away that guilty pleasure feeling that some people have when they tune in just for entertainment. You know what I mean? There's always been this element of guilty pleasure, this voyeuristic feeling that comes with watching reality television. It's like you're peeking into something you shouldn't be seeing. But would it change how people feel about the show if they really knew what was happening behind the scenes? Would they still want to watch if they understood the full picture? Personally, the only reason I keep watching is to call out Kody's behavior, to highlight the harms of polygamy, and to advocate for women and victims who have been trapped in these kinds of groups. I don't want to contribute to media that serves as a propaganda machine for a system that perpetuates violence against women and children. At what point does the show ever take that perspective seriously? Do you think they'll even mention how suicide is such a major issue in these kinds of cultures, especially among young men and boys who leave? It's a huge problem. They're at a much higher risk compared to others because of the shunning, the rejection from their families, and the overwhelming shame. They're raised believing they have to follow a certain path, and when they can't or don't, they're left feeling like failures. The isolation, the loss of their entire support networks, it's more than most people can endure. On top of that, there's such a lack of education around mental health. These communities often discourage seeing doctors, stigmatize mental illness, and make people feel like their struggles are their own fault. They're taught not to trust medication and to believe that if they just prayed harder or acted happier, they could manage their mental health. There are so many harmful stigmas layered into this, and honestly, I doubt any of that will make it onto the show. It also makes me sad knowing that contractually the women in the family had to film this. Do you think they even wanted to? Couldn't they have just said, "We're done," and walked away? And for TLC to suddenly focus the last 3 episodes of the season on Garrison after not mentioning him once all season, isn't that strange? We've gone through 22 episodes without hearing his name or seeing him at all, and now, all of a sudden, his death becomes the centerpiece. It feels unsettling. We'll have to see how it all unfolds, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. If you don't feel comfortable watching, you absolutely don't have to. I'll be watching with a heavy heart, and honestly, my stomach is in knots even talking about this in today's video, because I truly hate it. Garrison Brown's life ended far too soon. He was a victim of both a polygamous cult and an abusive father. And if you, or anyone you know, is struggling with thoughts of self-harm or suicide, please know that you're not alone, and help is always available. In the United States, you can call or text 988 for free, confidential support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Share them in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any future updates. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.